Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the Rochdale by-election results. Should have been a very unremarkable affair, with Labour romping home to retain the seat. However, as Labour had to completely abandon their candidate, all of a sudden it became very interesting. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So yes, Rochdale's basically cursed. It's not just a result of the circumstances surrounding this by-election either. You have to feel for the people. It's like they're being punished for something. I mean, did the Witchfinder General come from the town or something? So what I'm going to discuss is the circumstances leading up to like the way the election turned out into a madhouse, the implications of George Galloway winning, because there is a plus side for Labour, and how it exposed Reform UK again. And as this by-election was basically a shit sandwich, I'll discuss some bread first, then Galloway, then some more bread. So first bit of bread, the results and how most of the main runners and riders were cursed. Well, the turnout was very good. For a by-election, it's a very good turnout. It's almost 40%. That's encouraging. I know it suggests that even with a good turnout, Galloway was able to win comfortably. But being fair, who were those opposed to him supposed to vote for? Labour's Azhar Ali could have chosen to fight as an anti-Galloway campaigner on local issues, as he was essentially going to be an independent anyway. From what I can tell, what he seemed to do is to turn his campaign into an anti-Labour Galloway light parody. Was he trying to lose his deposit? In fact, if Galloway is the pound shop Farage, then Ali decided to turn himself into the back alley Galloway. He only just managed to get that deposit back, or not that it was him who paid the deposit in the first place. In the end, the strong second place was for an independent who chose to fight a, what you might call a Marcus Rashford style campaign. Non-partisan and purely on local issues as far as I can tell. To say there was no great build up to their campaign and no serious support outside the town, David Tully did really well. But of course, nowhere near challenging Galloway. If there was anti-Galloway voting, it was not crystallised on a single candidate. In the lead up to the campaign, Labour, of course, had to bin their candidate after the deadline, so they couldn't select a new one. So Labour had no candidate at all. That meant that the Conservatives and Lib Dems were completely caught out, because there was no way they were going to throw resources at this by-election, because Labour were going to win it all day long. Why would you? But once that was no longer the case, then it was too late. And I had a few weeks left. In fact, the Conservative candidate went on holiday during the campaign. He'd already had it booked and didn't fancy losing it for the sake of a campaign he couldn't hope to win. In terms of what this means for Galloway, Labour and the bad takes on the results, let's now discuss the filling in this shit sandwich. First of all, you get the impression that the reason Labour hesitated to drop Ali when the recording of him spreading conspiracy theories hit the news about the Hamas attacks, you know, you sort of got the impression it was because they thought to themselves, oh no, this will leave the way open for Galloway, we don't want that. Dropping their candidate always was going to mean that Galloway had a real shot, right? Now, I don't know if that was their thinking. It's just speculation. But if it was, I don't know that they should have worried that much. Sure, Galloway winning is Labour's worst case scenario. But it's not the nightmare scenario being discussed in some sections of the media. In fact, there's a big plus for Labour out of this result. So first, Galloway has form here. He's done this before. He's won elections against Labour by monetising war in the Middle East. This is the third time he's done it. In fact, the other two times were arguably more credible because we actually had some agency. This one, we've got no real agency over this war. So, and you know, the fact is he only ever wins when there is like a massive war in the Middle East to grift off. He is a grifter. He's a left-wing Nigel Farage. And I say that only because he professes to be left-wing. Given that he was a strong, and I mean a strong supporter of Saddam Hussein and still is of Vladimir Putin, who are not just both authoritarian figures like him, but right-wing. I'm only taking Galloway at his word that he's a socialist at all. But he insists he is, so there he is. In fact, he was actually tentatively endorsed by Farage for this by-election and more explicitly endorsed by Nick Griffin, formerly of the BNP. However, I will say this for him. Galloway has at least been elected to Westminster 3 times now without like a serious party machine behind him, unlike Nigel Farage, who has never won and once lost to a dolphin. So you might ask why I call Galloway the pound shop Farage and not Farage the pound shop Galloway. because there's more money behind Farage. It's just that Galloway has more genuine support. In fact, there's a bit of a row between Galloway and Reform UK. George Galloway is claiming that he has proof that Richard Tice tried to recruit him to Reform UK not long ago for a by-election. Very interesting if true, because it shows that Reform UK, or Richard Tice at least, but he is basically Reform UK, does not see much difference between him and them. Not that I think Galloway would be wanting to shout this from the rooftops, because it only begs further questions as to why he's so pally with far-right figures like Steve Bannon and Nigel Farage. But anyway, digressing a bit. The point is that Galloway has been here before. He'll talk shit in Parliament now until the election, and that will be that. And this election is only going to have a few months before he's had years as an MP to talk crap. I see little reason why he should be a bigger problem for Labour than Andrew Bridgen is for the Tories, who was literally standing up in Parliament yesterday and calling for NHS doctors and nurses to face the death penalty. That's not hyperbole. He explicitly called for that. In fact, I don't actually know what Galloway's supporters even think he's going to do in Parliament. I'm sure I've missed some, but the only promise I saw Galloway make was that if he won, it would be the end of Keir Starmer. In reality, the day after the general election, Keir Starmer will be the Prime Minister. George Galloway will probably be back on the street looking for his next grift. In fact, he's very unlikely to even fight the Rochdale by-election. He will just, and again, he's got form for this. You know, even if he wins an election, doesn't mean to say he contests it at the next election. He's quite happy to go, do you know what? I've finished using you now. I'm going to go and try and find a better bet. You know, but there is, as I say, a plus for Labour. Galloway was intending to shit stir in the London mayoral contest he was going to enter. Well, how does he now stand in that contest without making it really super obvious he never gave a crap about Rochdale? If the general election is on May the 2nd, the same day, he could in theory just say, well, you know, I'm not actually going to contest. I've had my say. I'm not going to contest this, because there's boundary changes anyway. It's not going to be quite the same seat. So I suppose he could, under those circumstances, still stand for London Mayor, maybe, depending on when the deadlines are. But I would still say it's still yet more evidence that he just flits around like a cuckoo. But if the election isn't in May, then he'd have to actively step down as an MP for Rochdale. So it looks like Sadiq Khan may well be spared at least one complete bell end in the contest in May. Then the bad takes, naturally some people are going, oh, it's a great victory over Labour, this will send a message to Keir Starmer. And you point out, hang on a minute, Labour had no candidate. If Labour had a candidate, they'd have won it. And there was a couple of people tried to counter, oh, but Labour was on the ballot. So I then point out, well, OK, people around the country may not know what was going on. Some people may not even know there was a by-election on yesterday. But the people in Rochdale do. In particular, those voting in the Rochdale by-election knew the situation. And to be clear, Labour had dropped Ali even before people will have been filling in the postal votes, of which there were a fair number. In fact, it was maybe a bit of an advert for getting postal voting, because that may have been partially responsible for the strong turnout. To suggest that people in Rochdale thought that there was a Labour candidate just because Labour's still on the ballot paper would be to suggest that those voting in Rochdale didn't have a clue what was going on in their own town and campaign. And if you think they're that stupid, how do the results tell you anything? It was difficult to know what they thought of that response because they then blocked me. But even more serious commentators were talking rubbish. I was up late. I'm a bit sleep deprived, I have to say. Because I couldn't get to sleep even after the result, which was long delayed because Galloway was swanning around eating cake or something. But anyway, the BBC tried to say something like, oh, it's a big result against the established party. It's like, no, it wasn't. The established parties weren't there. Labour didn't have a candidate. The Green Party, same thing. They had to bin their candidate as well. The Conservative candidate pissed off on holiday during the campaign, and the Lib Dems didn't even set up a serious challenge. I mean, nor did the Conservatives come to that. As for Reform UK, what were they thinking using a disgraced local nonce as their candidate? There are some genuine points of interest in this by-election, but the state of the big parties is not one of them. That the Conservative candidate, despite going on holiday, got more votes than the former Labour candidate in a Labour town so strong that they won it easily in 2019, even against like the Red Wall crumble, shows the power of campaigning. Without Labour's campaign machine behind Ali, he failed so badly he got fewer votes than the Conservatives. The Conservatives may not have been committing very much to the contest, but they did have their party backing and their local constituency backing, and that counted for more on the day. But Reform UK were nowhere. It was a better share of the vote than the by-elections last year, yes, so I still say that these recent by-elections are showing that Reform UK are in a stronger position nationally than last year, but the evidence is still that the voting intention polls are mostly inflating their support. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.